Okay, we are live, so I'll call the meeting to order. I'll look for my clerk for roll call.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the April 29th Special Council meeting. I'm Jennifer Connor, Clerk of Ramara Township. I'll begin with roll call of council. Mayor Clark.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Bell.
Present.
Councillor Snutch.
Present.
Councillor Fisher.
Present.
Councillor Tuyu.
Present.
Councillor Bell.
Present.
Thank you. Back to you, Your Worship.
This meeting is being streamed live on the Township of Ramara YouTube channel. Be advised that by attending a public meeting of the Council of the Township of Ramara, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and will form a part of the public record. The chair, CAO, and/or clerk have the discretion and authority to terminate or interrupt the live streaming in exceptional circumstances where the content of debate is considered inappropriate to be published. Thank you.
Okay, so look for an adoption of this is a special council meeting for a public meeting, so I'll look for the adoption of the agenda. Recommendation that the agenda dated April 29th, 2024 be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor Snutch, second by Councillor Fisher. Any questions on the agenda? All in favor? That is carried. Next, do I have a disclosure of pecuniary interest? Any member of council? Seems odd to say it now because I'm gonna have to say it again when we get in the public meeting, but I'm not seeing any. So disclosure of pecuniary interest, we had none in the public meeting. So now I will open the public meeting and once again ask for disclosure of pecuniary interest by any member of council. Not seeing any. As required under the Planning Act and pursuant to council policy, council is holding a public meeting to deal with one planning proposal. Municipally led official plan and zoning bylaw amendment files OP 1/24 and Z 1/24. These amendments are township wide. Please be advised that if a person or public body files an appeal of the decision of the Ramara Township Council in respect to the proposed official plan amendment or zoning bylaw amendment application, but does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Ramara Township Council before the proposed amendments are adopted, the Ontario Land Tribunal, OLT, may dismiss all or part of the appeal. The purpose of this meeting is to inform and provide the public and members of council with an opportunity to ask questions and express views with respect to the proposal. Council will consider all comments and submissions received, and staff will work in an attempt to resolve any concerns. Staff from the planning department are present and will be writing down your comments. The clerk will now advise on the matter of giving notice and give an explanation of the proposed amendment.
Thank you, Your Worship. Notice of this public meeting for official plan amendment OP 1/24 and zoning bylaw amendment file Z 1/24 was sent to all appropriate agencies on March 26, 2024 and published in Aurelia Matters in accordance with provincial regulations. No written concerns were received with respect to the proposed from any agencies. The Simcoe County District School Board submitted comments on April 25th, 2024, advising that planning staff are supportive of the proposed wording and intent, but note that the school board is by law required to provide access to education services should the situation arise. Enbridge Gas also provided comments noting no objection to the proposed amendments. The amendments will have the effect of updating the official plan policy to be reflective of provincial requirements and updating density. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment implements the new official plan policy and also acts as a housekeeping amendment, updating definitions and making minor changes to allow for clarity and consistency on interpretation. Back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Jennifer Stong, Township Planner, will provide the background of the planning process to date. Jen?
Good morning, everyone. Just going to get this to play. Okay, great. So today we're discussing the public meeting for official plan file 1/24 and zoning bylaw amendment file Z 1/24. You may recall that in February of this year, council reviewed a planning report basically saying that the staff had reviewed the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment while we were waiting for the PPS to go through. And we found kind of some quick win barriers that we could clean up while we're waiting for the new PPS. So this is what that amendment is for. So the purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment files is to update the policies to the township's OP and zoning bylaw pertaining to additional residential units, add policy regarding renewable energy facilities, update outdated policies that pose barriers to development, as well as update some definitions for consistency and clarity on interpretation in the zoning bylaw. As the clerk was explaining, the notice of the public meeting was circulated in accordance with the Planning Act. It was published in Really Matters on March 27th and was sent to all the agencies on March 26th. The notice and draft amendments were also posted on the municipality's website. There were no comments of concern received. The school board did submit some comments Thursday, though, so they didn't make the agenda. They were consulted early in the drafting of the amendment, and they just noted that they are supportive of the proposed wording and intent. However, the school board is required by law to provide access to education services should the situation ever arise. So I thought for this, I would just kind of go through the amendment. The report has more in-depth information, and then you also had the draft zoning bylaw and the draft official plan amendment, as well as an appendix that had the red line version of the plan. So this will sort of just give a high level review of everything, and I'm open to any questions, of course. So the first part of the OP that's getting updated is the utilities section. So right now, utilities include anything regarding energy. So that would fall under renewable energy facilities. There were changes in 2019 to the Green Energy Act that repealed that basically they could go anywhere. So it allows municipalities to kind of guide where they want these facilities to go. There are still some energy facilities that are exempt from the Planning Act, and those are ones that are initiated by Hydro One or by the I'm losing them, Ontario Power Generation. But these ones would be sort of like privately initiated, big solar farms, those types of things. So this allows us to kind of direct where those can go. We are proposing that they go to industrial and rural lands to stay away from like the environmentally protected lands. And it also notes that there's policies the municipality can put into about viewscapes, buffering from other municipalities, ensuring that there's land use compatibility, environmental studies, those types of things. So that's what this is updating. The other section we're updating is the recreational vehicles, trailers, and park model trailers. This section is being updated just due to outdated language. The Ontario Building Code defines what's considered a dwelling. This section will still maintain the intent of not having, recreational vehicles, trailers, and park model trailers to be dwellings within the municipality unless they're in a prescribed trailer park. We're just updating those sections. We've also added defined terms of designated greenfield area, which is consistent with the county Simcoe official plan. That's basically within a settlement area. Anything that's not developed is considered a designated greenfield area, and there's minimum density or target density requirements for those sections. And then we've also defined renewable energy facility, because if we're going to regulate it, we should have it defined. We're also updating some of the additional residential unit policies. So right now, ROP says that you can have 2 additional residential units per property, 1 in a house and 1 outside of a house. And we're updating those policies to allow it so that they can both be within the main house. It's consistent with what the province wants in the urban settlement areas. So right now, the Planning Act says you cannot restrict the ability for someone to have 2 additional residential units within an existing townhouse, single detached dwelling, or semi-detached. So we're just kind of spreading that language across to all zones, just so it's consistent, because we'd have 2 in a house in village residential, but then you'd still have to have them separated out. And it's problematic. So we're just kind of making it across the board. At the end of the day, there's still going to be technically 3 dwelling units on a property. Shouldn't really make a difference if 2 of them are in one house or there's 1 in a house and 1 detached. The same policy that will remain is that only 1 is allowed in a detached building. And again, that's in line with the Planning Act. We're also looking to add the ability for an additional residential unit within the shoreline residential area. When we originally updated the official plan policies at the start, there wasn't a lot of municipalities that had updated theirs yet. So we've had some people asking about, putting them in the shoreline residential area. We have a lot of properties that are across the street from the lake. So, I mean, really, and then people would ask sort of what's the difference between having one in Creighton Street that's on the water versus a shoreline residential property. So we looked at it. We still want to protect the lake, of course. So there are provisions in there that say you need to meet the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan. You can't be in a MAP floodplain. You need to have adequate servicing, so the site needs to be able to contain it, and they should be within more than 30 meters from the water. The should is there because we have a lot of lots that cannot accommodate the 30 meters. So if they need to go closer than that, then there may be studies that are required to allow them to place it closer. We've also restricted the size of the additional residential units in the shoreline residential area. So they should be generally 50% of the gross floor area of the primary dwelling. So we don't have, sort of two bigger houses on waterfront lots, that kind of thing, just to sort of keep the built form in place, but also make the properties affordable for purchase and resale. Okay, we've also updated the densities. Sorry, this is a lot smaller than I thought it was going to be. So the densities are being updated in the settlement areas in the Ramara Road corridor. The densities are proposed to be gross densities. This will allow for mixed use. We're also looking at bigger undeveloped portions of land. So it's difficult to calculate a net density when there's such a big area. We don't have any more strict maximums on density. In the past, in 2003, Ramara was really restricted on how much it could grow. It causes for development that can't sustain itself. We need more housing. So allowing the densities to be updated to today's standards are important. So hamlets, which are unserviced or partially serviced settlement areas, right now you're allowed 2 units per gross hectare. We're looking to update that to 5 units per hectare. That's consistent with what is allowed in an unserviced settlement area is 5 units per hectare. So it just kind of carries that over again for consistency. Villages, fully serviced settlement areas would have anticipated densities of anywhere from 7 to 20. 7 would be nice to start, up to 20 for low density. Then you have your medium range of up to 75, and then your high density of up to 175. This kind of works towards getting that 32 people and jobs per hectare that's asked for in the County of Simcoe official plan. And then also the County of Simcoe official plan is looking for a 20% intensification in our existing settlement areas. So in many cases, we have someone who comes in, they want to sever a lot, they meet the frontage, they show they can put 2 houses on it, but you exceed our density, you need an official plan amendment, and then it just kicks them away from doing that intensification because it's too costly and too risky. So it's just a barrier for development. We've also updated the language in the Ramara Road corridor to note that it is not a settlement area. The use or access to public schools shall not be permitted within the corridor, and maintain the nature and purpose of maintain and oh my goodness, that green's really hard to read. I'm so sorry. Maintain the nature and purpose of the tourist destination. So we've basically said through agreements and purchase and sale that should be noted. Okay, and then we've also updated the language in the Ramara Road corridor to allow for 24 units per gross hectare for the residential units, and a maximum height of 48 meters. Just missed that line. Okay, so moving on to the zoning bylaw. So the zoning bylaw is going to implement these official plan changes, and then we're also going to clean up some of the, I guess, complexities that we kind of run into from the actual building of houses. The first being retaining walls. So currently our zoning bylaw asks for a 1 meter setback to an interior lot line for retaining walls of a certain size. In reviewing some of the sites and the lot grading reviews, there's sort of a bit of a problematic because you have your retaining wall and then there's kind of a 1 meter between your neighbor and your retaining wall. And that needs to kind of have the swale in it, needs to be maintained. It's just kind of difficult. So by allowing those retaining walls to abut the neighbor's property, the drainage can all be contained within that retaining wall. So if you have a property that's built up on one side, they'll have the proper, Big O and those types of things within that to drain that water away so that there isn't kind of a 2 sections of a lot line that they need to maintain. It does note that they will require a permit. So the zoning bylaw is applicable law, so it still will trigger a building permit so we can ensure that they're constructed properly. The other thing we're adding is freestanding decks. This is common. Actually, the City of Aurelia is doing a similar thing. Their decks are a bit bigger. We're keeping them a bit smaller. So we have a maximum size of 161 square feet. They can't be any higher than 2 feet off the ground. And it just allows people to put these sort of floating decks within the vicinity of the water. Some people, kind of have shore walls or it's rocky, so it allows them to kind of enjoy that space. They do have to be 2 meters from the lot line, just like a boathouse or a dock, and they can't be attached to any other structure. Okay, so then some of the other stuff is sort of clerical because it's, sort of already defined or already in the Ontario Building Code. So it just doesn't make sense to kind of define things in both places. So right now our zoning bylaw says, how deep a house can be for a dwelling unit to be below grade. This is regulated in the Ontario Building Code for ingress and egress and daylighting. So that's going to be removed. Additional residential unit policies are getting updated in the zoning bylaw to implement the changes to the OP. Again, the additional residential unit policies in the shoreline residential would be updated in the zoning bylaw. And then we've also added just a blurb about allowing for cash in lieu of parking. You'll remember that council passed that bylaw. So it's just noting that it's in the zoning bylaw as well. Definitions we're adding are floating accommodation, renewable energy facilities. We're also updating the definition of a boathouse, just to note that there can be no sleeping or storing of floating accommodation in the boathouse. We've updated the motor vehicle definition. The current definition for motor vehicle includes mobile home and trailer as a motor vehicle. They are not motor vehicles, so we're just taking those out. And then we've also removed the yes, we haven't removed the definitions of basement and crawl space. It's just noted that they are as defined in the Ontario Building Code. Again, it was one of those things where it was defined twice and the definitions didn't really match. So it's just better to have it one definition, one spot, and it's structural. So the next steps would basically be to refine the amendments based on any comments that are received from council or the public at this meeting. And then we would return the amendment to the next council meeting for consideration, or if there's any changes, then we would bring it to committee of the whole for discussion. Once adopted and passed by council, the official plan will be forwarded to the County of Simcoe for adoption. Questions?
Okay, thank you. The public will now have an opportunity to speak. When providing your comments, please ensure that you state your full name and address for the record. Any questions from the folks here? Did not on that. Do I have any online? Do we know, Jen or Ashley?
I didn't get any requests.
Okay, then I will turn it over to council now for any questions. Maybe I'll just ask the first one I had. So the Ramara Road will not be included in schooling, correct? Because it's a destination commercial. What about employees? Like if they build employee housing, would they not need to be included in the schools? Because obviously the employees may have children.
Yeah, so right now the policies wouldn't allow necessarily for employee housing. The resort units have to be very specific to someone living on a resort. A good example would be kind of someone who spends summers in Florida. They come back, they have a resort unit that they can purchase.
Winters in Florida, I think.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, winter in Florida, that kind of thing. So right now the policies don't have employee housing in them. That may be looked at when we do our update, but right now
Again, they could always do an amendment at that time if it were to come down to it. Okay. Any other questions from council members? Councillor Tuyu.
I have a question on the 5.1.7.1 on page 26, I guess, where it talks about how trailers, they're being renamed from mobile homes to RVs and stuff, which is great. But it does say that dwelling in trailers is discouraged. And my question is it not illegal?
So it would be worded, so the permanent and seasonal dwellings is discouraged is the original text in the amendment. So it says except for in approved seasonal trailer parks and mobile home parks. So if there were approved mobile home parks and trailer parks, then I guess it's basically saying that they could live in them. But yeah, I guess you wouldn't necessarily live in a trailer park. You would. Seasonal trailer parks, mobile home parks.
I
So
meant,
yeah, it would just basically say that the recreational vehicles, trailers and park model trailers cannot be used outside of those approved parks on a full-time basis.
Yeah.
So they can't be used as a house. Like nobody can put a park model trailer up on a residential lot.
okay, that was my question. If
Yeah.
someone could have one in their driveway and then live in it for whatever reason and,
Yeah, no, they can't use them as an additional residential unit or a main house.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. Oh, Counselor Tuyu, go ahead.
Is there, this came up recently, which is why I'm asking, but is it addressed at all about a limit of how many vehicles operable and licensed that can be stored in a driveway that in a area that's zoned village residential?
So that would be more of an actual bylaw enforcement. Zoning bylaws really regulate your land use planning, right? So this is your house, this is your required parking spaces. We
Right.
can't really regulate through the zoning bylaw how many vehicles people own. But through property standards, there would be a.
Okay, yeah, that was my question, is whether it was in the zoning bylaw, because I've been having a difficult time finding information on that. So I thought this might be a good time to ask.
Yes.
I
you
have
the
one more
floor.
Yeah,
question.
no worries.
It's regarding the freestanding decks. I noticed that it said that it's they're supposed to be 2 meters from an interior lot line, similar to boathouses and docks. I have a question again that's sort of related to another thing, but docks, they're supposed to be 2 meters from the lot line. What would happen about any projection into the water? Some people have docks that are 100 feet long and veer off wherever.
Yes,
Crossing in front of someone else's house. Do we have any kind of rule on that?
yes, actually, it is in the zoning bylaw right now. So it's 2 meters in from the lot line as it projects out into the lake. So as long as your lot lines are going straight, your dock would go straight. Now, there are instances where the lot lines go like this on people. So
Right.
then as long as they're within their projection, even though technically it would go in front of someone else's, it's still following the projection of their lot. So the irregular shaped lots on the waterfront can be problematic. But there is wording in that about going straight out.
Okay, that's great to know, because I know with water, it's always difficult to figure out whether that's our issue or one for the MNRF. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. So if any person has not received notice of this meeting, wishes to receive notice of the passing of the bylaw, please forward your address and phone number by email to the Township Planning Department at planning@ramara.ca. If you do not provide your full address, you may not receive notice. This concludes the public meeting, and any comments from the public or council, if noted, will now be considered before making a decision on the matter. Okay, that's into that. So I guess there's no motion to pass on this one then. We're just concluding the meeting.
Yes, there is,
No,
your worship.
There is a motion there that
Hang on. Oh, here it is. Yes. The recommendation, the council received report BP 1124 regarding a municipal led official plan and zoning bylaw amendment files OP 1/24 and Z 1/24, and that subject to any comments received at the public meeting, staff be directed to forward the amendments to the next available council meeting for consideration. Moved by Councillor Snutch, second by Councillor Tuyu. All in favor? That is carried. Now I have a confirmation bylaw, that bylaw 2024-31, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the special council meeting held on the 29th day of April 2024 be considered read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Moved by Councillor Bell. How about Councillor Bell, second by Councillor Fisher. All in favor? That is carried. And lastly, we now adjourn at, well, it says PM, but 9:53 AM until May 27th, 2024. Moved by Councillor Fisher, second by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor? That is carried. So